She stood by the marble door, hands trembling. The silk uniform she'd been given clung awkwardly to her body, but her eyes, those soft, tired eyes, still searched the floor, hoping not to be noticed. Eniola had only been working at the mansion for 4 days. She didn't even know where to keep her shoes when entering the inner hall. But what she did know was hunger, pain, silence, and how to survive humiliation without a single tear. The ballroom was lit like heaven. Guests shimmered in gowns that whispered wealth. Gold chandeliers rained warm light on icy hearts. Cameras clicked. Champagne sparkled. And in the middle of it all stood Chief Damola Akon, the coldest billionaire Lagos had ever known. His face was carved like marble. His heart, even colder. Tonight, he was hosting a charity gala. A public show of kindness from a man who barely looked his own workers in the eye. Every staff member had strict instructions to wear crisp, iron uniforms, nothing less. But Eniola's only dress, a faded uniform issued to her by the housekeeper, had ripped under her arm while she scrubbed the toilet earlier. She had no money to sew it. No one to borrow from. No time to hide. So she came out with it. Torn. Stitched with safety pins. Shame tucked behind her smile. The guests didn't notice her at first. Just another background shadow carrying a tray. But as she passed near the main table, Damola's eyes caught a tear. Then lingered. Then darkened. Everyone around him went silent as his voice, deep and sharp, sliced the music. Who is that? He didn't wait for an answer. He strode straight to her, drink in hand, face tight. Are you mad? His voice cracked through the air like a whip. You came to my event, wearing rags. Before Eniola could open her mouth. Slap. His hand landed hard against her cheek. The entire hall gasped. The tray fell. Glass shattered. The music stopped. She didn't cry. She didn't even touch her face. She just stood there, frozen in front of 100 glittering guests, as tears welled quietly in the eyes of some watching. And in that moment, something shifted, not in him, but in her. She slowly bent down to pick the broken glasses, even as blood trickled from the corner of her lip. No words. No scream. Only quiet dignity. And then, she did something no one expected. Eniola stood up, looked him directly in the eyes, and said, calmly, "You may own this house, sir, but you will never own my worth." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Phone started recording. Someone in the corner whispered, "Did you hear that?" Chief Damola froze. The entire moment turned sour, not for her, but for him. That single sentence cut deeper than anything he had ever felt. But he didn't show it. He scoffed, turned his back, and walked away. But what he didn't know was that the entire world had just witnessed everything. 3 hours later, as the party died down and laughter returned, a post went viral. A TikTok clip. 30 seconds. Captioned, "Billionaire slaps Maid for being poor, but she said this." The internet wasn't kind. That night, Eniola sat alone on the servant's quarters bed, pressing eyes to her swollen cheek. But she didn't feel small. She felt like something had cracked open. Not on her face, but in her destiny. The siren screamed like a wounded soul, slicing through traffic as the ambulance tore through the street. F lay there, limp and soaked in her own blood, her head tilted, eyes barely fluttering open. For a moment, the world was upside down, literally. She couldn't feel her legs. Couldn't move her arms. People's voices became echoes. The flashlights from phones blinded her more than the pain itself. She had just wanted to cross the road. Now, she was being wheeled away like trash. And Lucy. She was gone. Gone like it never happened. Like her palm didn't shove another woman into death's path. Like her high heels didn't walk away from a life she almost ended. A woman's voice trembled beside F. "She's still breathing. Please, please don't let her die." It wasn't Lucy. It was a stranger. a roadside banana seller who dropped her tray to kneel beside the broken woman. No one knew her name. No one knew where she came from. And honestly, no one cared. Until the video. By morning, the internet was on fire. A clip, exactly 19 seconds long, showed a homeless woman begging to cross the road. Then Nusi, elegant and pissed, pushing her violently. The sound was muted, but the impact wasn't. How can someone be so heartless? She pushed her like a dog. If that woman dies, charge her for murder. Nusi's name trended for all the wrong reasons. Brands called emergency meetings. Her charity organization suspended her. But in her luxurious penthouse, she stared at the screen in silence. Her phone kept ringing. Her lawyer. Her manager. Her mother. She ignored them all. Because something about the video, something in F's eyes as she fell, shook her. It wasn't just guilt. It was fear. Fear that for the first time in her life, she had no control over how the world saw her. And F. She lay in a public hospital bed. Unknown. Forgotten. Until the nurse came with a whisper. Someone paid your bills. Before the street swallowed her, F was a woman of dreams. Once, she had a name, a full name people used with respect. She once wore heels. Once smelled of vanilla and cocoa butter. Once worked in a boutique where she sold dresses to women like Nusi, who barely looked at her except to complain about price tags. She had a man. His name. Deji. He was smooth. Promised forever. Took everything. First her heart. Then her money. Then her apartment. By the time she found out she was pregnant, he was gone. Switched off. Blocked her. Moved on. She bled the child out on a cold bathroom floor. Alone. The fall wasn't instant. It was slow. She moved from the boutique to a supermarket job. From there to a cleaning gig. Then one night, she overslept at the bus station and no one came looking. She never went back. It was easier that way. People stop asking questions when you disappear long enough. And pain. Pain becomes normal. The streets taught her things. Like how dogs won't bark if you don't fear them. How cold water in a gutter can clean wounds. How you can go 3 days without food, but not without hope. Still, she'd smile at people who passed. She'd whisper, "God bless you," even when cursed. Until the day she met Nusi. By day 2 of the viral video, brands were pulling out. She lost 2 endorsement deals. A bank she partnered with issued a public apology for her actions. She tried to explain that F had scratched her car, that she didn't mean for it to go that far, but the damage was done. Nobody was listening. What stung the most wasn't the hate online, it was the silence from her father. He didn't call. Didn't check on her. And this was the same man she spent years trying to impress. Nusi stared at herself in the mirror. Lipstick. Flawless. Empty. Her assistant entered the room. "She's alive," the woman. That name again. Like a ghost she couldn't escape. "She's out of danger." Nusi nodded. Then asked something no one expected. "Where is she?" 3 days later, F opened her eyes fully. Her body was stitched, her legs bruised, but intact. A woman sat beside her. Not Nusi. Another woman. Soft face. Old scarf. Big eyes. "I saw what happened," she said gently. "You're strong." F tried to speak. Her throat was dry. The woman held her hand. "I don't know what you've been through, but you're not alone anymore." F didn't cry. She hadn't cried in years. But something about the warmth of those fingers, the way this stranger looked at her like she mattered, cracked something inside her. Not loudly. Just a crack. But the kind that lets light in. The next week was quiet. Lucy visited the hospital once. She didn't enter the room. Just stood outside. Watched through the glass. She saw F's bandaged head. Her torn feet. Saw her whispering thanks to the nurse. She wanted to say something. But the words wouldn't come. Instead, she left money. Enough to cover a month's care. The nurse passed the envelope to F. She didn't leave her name. But F knew. She could smell the same expensive perfume from that day. And oddly, instead of hate, she whispered, "I forgive her." Because F knew what the world didn't. Hurt people. And Lucy. She was broken too. It had been 2 years since that day. Since the chaos. Since the crowd screamed. Since a rich woman pushed a homeless stranger into the path of death and just walked away. No consequences. No police. No justice. Only silence. But silence is not weakness. Sometimes, it's a seed. An F. She was the sun. The auditorium was filled to the last chair. Hundreds of women. Journalists. TV stations. There was electricity in the air, not from wires, but from hope. F stood at the center of the stage. Not in rags. Not in pain. She wore a modest but radiant dress. In power. No designer. Just dignity. She adjusted the microphone slowly. Looked around. Took a breath. 2 years ago, she began, her voice steady. I lay on the road, bleeding, forgotten, unnamed. People watched me suffer, laughed, walked away. But pain taught me something. It taught me to build. The audience held its breath. I didn't rise from pity. I rose because I got tired of waiting for help. So I became what I was waiting for. A standing ovation followed. Tears ran freely. Not just from others, even from her. Behind her, a slideshow flicked across the screen. Photos of shelters she'd built. Women she'd saved. Children she fed. Old women she hugged. One photo froze the room. A picture of her, on the street, the day she was pushed. Bleeding. Alone. She turned and stared at it for a long moment. That woman, that version of me. She is the reason I keep going. In a parked car across the street, sat Lucy. Same car. Same wealth. But no shine. She'd arrived early. She wanted to go in. But the closer she got to the building, the heavier her legs became. So she stayed in her car. Watching. Through the tinted glass, she could see women entering the hall, all dressed in colors, smiling, proud. No one recognized her now. Or maybe they did, and chose silence the way she once did. On her phone screen, F's speech was going viral. Hashtags flooded the feed. Hashtag she rose, hashtag F inspires, hashtag from street to strength. Lucy locked her phone. She wasn't crying. But her heart was loud. Pain doesn't always scream, sometimes it just rots you inside. As the speech ended, an elderly woman walked to the stage with a plaque. To the woman who turned trauma into light. To the homeless girl who gave others a home. To F. Applause thundered. Cameras flashed. F held the plaque, trembling, not from fear, but from fullness. A little girl ran up from the crowd and hugged her legs tightly. You saved my mommy, she whispered. Thank you. F knelt. Hugged her. Smiled. Later that night, she walked out alone. The street was quiet. Familiar. Same road. Different woman. As she strode, she noticed a figure sitting at the corner, a young woman, barefoot, cradling a baby, crying silently. It hit her like lightning. That was her. 2 years ago. No hesitation. She walked over. Removed her shoes. Gave them to the woman. You matter, she whispered. Let's walk this together. The woman sobbed. People nearby watched, shocked. some recorded. Some just wept quietly. But F didn't care. This wasn't for clout. It was her new life mission, to be what no one was to her when she was broken. Nusi drove off that night with no music, no calls, no celebration. She passed the same street where it all began. Her hands gripped the wheel tightly. Was she sorry? Even she didn't know anymore. Guilt had become so familiar, it felt like a second skin. Money. She still had it. But peace. Gone. And now, the woman she tried to destroy stood taller than any billboard in the city. F sat on her small balcony, overlooking the city. Not rich. Not poor. But powerful, in a way money could never buy. Beside her was a notebook, filled with names of women who had walked into her shelter. Women who were once invisible. Like her. She smiled. Closed the book. Looked up at the stars. Thank you, for the push. Not everyone who pushes you wants your fall. Some are unknowingly pushing you into purpose. And now, F was no longer the girl on the street. She was the woman no one saw coming.